live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Get a sip of that drink, big boy. I love it. That's it, man. You suckle on that mic. What's going on, buddy?
Oh, working hard.
Working hard or hardly working, man?
No, working hard. How dare you even think that I wouldn't be hardly work? I would be hardly
easy.
Work harding.
Overheating.
Tanya Harding.
So, as everyone can see, we're opening up on this fine tweet by Mr. Pope, Ohio State's finest young gentleman.
Yeah, the best.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really someone that you want on your team.
Yeah, so let's dive in. Let's talk about this, man. So apparently Playboy was walking in, from everything I've read, he was going into a play late. Also, it's important to understand that this game was like a total blowout. Like, it wasn't particularly close. But he was like throwing on his helmet to come into a play. He's a senior. His coaches were like, nah, son, get your ass back on the bench. And he absolutely lost his cool. And then said that he wanted to wish good luck, LUCC, you see a trend here, to his teammates, and then immediately hit him with the fuck Ohio State, which I personally love. I think it's in good taste.
I mean, look, if you're gonna do it, you got to do it. Like go all out. I don't know. Like, I get it. Like, if I'm him, like if you're a senior and you're not playing, and you're not even being given a chance to play against, Britain, like, yeah, I'd quit. I mean, like, what's the point? If they're not even gonna let you get game film to like even have a chance to play in the league, what are you doing?
Yeah, and as we've already established, you don't go to Ohio State to play school. So if you're not on the field, what the fuck are you doing? Yeah. Where the fuck you at? Right. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and like this is not even the first time we've seen someone quit. Like halfway through, I guess I just don't. It seems like such an like a brash decision. Like, it seems like, I don't know, that's a decision you'd want to like take time to think about. And these guys are just like in the middle of the game, like, oh, you know what? Yeah, I'm done.
They're like, yo, man, you seen Kayvon?
Yeah.
Nah, man. Where you at?
Like, oh yeah, I saw he went. Maybe he had to poop.
I saw the coaches escorting him. Maybe he's hurt. Maybe he's banged up.
It was crazy.
But you know what? Once you like set aside your like old school views of like what a player should and shouldn't do on the sideline, let's be honest. We all want to send that tweet. We all want to fucking walk out of our jobs tomorrow and be like, fuck insert employer here. So in that respect, kudos to him, man. He's living the dream, truthfully.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, basically. I mean, I'm not sure what he's gonna do now. Like, I'm not sure what.
By everything I'm seeing, I think he's still on the team. He like sent out an apology.
Dismissed.
Well, he sent out an apology tweet, and he was like, "I need to be better for the Buckeyes" or some shit. Maybe he was. I don't know. I didn't get much further than the tweet.
Yeah, he was dismissed from the team.
Shocking. It's a shocking outcome based on that behavior.
Right. It's crazy. Look, I mean, it's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Yeah.
I think, not the craziest sports story you've ever seen, but it's still kind of wild that he just fucking quit,
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Gotta hard to figure what was going through old Kayvon's head.
Hey, good for him.
Hope he finds his pot of gold at the end of this rainbow he's traveling down, because as you mentioned, it's bold. But anyway, on the topic of college football, kind of an interesting weekend, right? I think you mentioned to me earlier that Social Meds has been a little skeptical of some of these rankings and not totally invested in the way that we're presenting these teams.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't like, it's not new. You know, like we know this, but Twitter especially was a little up in arms about teams and their rankings, where they are, maybe where they should be, things like that. So, you know, looking at, I know we have multiple weeks up there, but like the two big ones that came up, and the two big ones that people were talking about were Clemson and what's the other team?
A&M.
Am I an idiot?
Thinking about A&M.
Oh yeah, Clemson and A&M. So it's, well, I guess A&M. I know for sure it's Clemson. It'll come to me, but Clemson was the biggest one.
Yeah.
And
So-
they're the only 2-loss team still in the top 25, and they're ahead of teams that only have 1 loss to decent teams. So, you know, like, I'll get the homer out of the way. Like, LSU's got 1 loss to a ranked UCLA, right? Texas has 1 loss to a top 10 Arkansas, which we'll talk about later. They shouldn't be any lower than 5 right now.
Right.
You know, even like I don't know, even like Maryland. I think Maryland only has 1 loss right now. So I don't know. It's a weird spot, you know, to be in right now. But clearly these voters are just voting with name recognition and or any sort of previous biases. Most of these voters are not watching the games.
Well, I think there's 2 things at play here. Like, the first one is, you're right, like the brands, right? The loyalty to the brands. Clemson remaining in the top 25 is only a byproduct of winning 2 championships in the last decade and who they are. But I also think too, and by the way, I've got the current rankings for this week pulled up right now, but I think another thing is, so we build these preseason polls, and it almost seems like the investment in that initial preseason poll causes you to stay in bed with these teams way longer than you should. And I don't know that there's a shining example in this list, but in general, right? Like, we have the preseason poll. Week 1 goes down. There's always like hyperbolic reaction to week 1. And then that kind of sets the poll, the cadence for the poll for the rest of the year. So like, if you impress in that week 1 and you seem like you're a contender and you break into like the top 6 or 7 and then lose, well, they're probably going to be a lot more lenient on you than in the example that you brought up. LSU losing to UCLA week 1, they haven't sniffed the poll since, right? And I'm not saying that they're worthy. I'm just saying that that's
right. They're not even top 30 right now in AP voting, basically.
Yeah. But I think
I'm not saying I'm not saying they should be. I think what I'm more saying is Clemson should be further down.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this, man. I like, if you look at this poll right now, so you got Alabama at 1, Georgia at 2. I don't think I can disagree with either of those. Georgia's handling business. The Clemson win, obviously now not as impressive as it was. But they've still been winning all their other games in pretty dominating fashion, even though they've not played anyone with a pulse.
Right.
You've got Oregon at 3. Again, I don't disagree with going into the horseshoe and winning. That's big. Doesn't matter what year it is. That's big.
Right. Like that. I think for the top 3, absolutely no problem with that. And honestly, you could probably even flip Oregon and Georgia, and I'd be fine with that as well.
Yeah, I think given the quality of wins now, knowing what we know now, I think Oregon deserves to be 2. But number 4 is where it falls apart for me. Penn State. So if the whole Penn State thing to me is baffling, because now you have Auburn, right? The win over Auburn, who almost lost to Georgia State.
Right.
That's not an impressive win, right? If that's the litmus for hopping into the top 10, like, shame on these voters. I'll also add that I think another piece of their current voting is the win over Wisconsin, which once again is not an impressive win. A lackluster Notre Dame team destroyed them this past weekend. Mm-hmm. So you've got 2 wins against, like C-level teams, and that's enough to put them in the top 5 is just baffling to me. I honestly think that Cincinnati deserves to be rounding out the top 5. And I think part of it is just like bias for hoping that they eventually get in. They're sitting at number 7 right now. But, between them and Arkansas, the fact that Iowa and Oklahoma are between them in the rankings right now is almost a slap in the face.
Yeah. Well, there's no reason Arkansas shouldn't be a top 5 team right now. Arkansas has the most impressive schedule of anybody at this point.
Yeah.
Like they just do, and their games haven't been particularly close. Like the A&M game was 10 points on the score, but like seeing that game, it felt like
it wasn't that
a
close.
17-24 point game. Like it wasn't really ever in doubt. So that's why it's the recognition, it's the name, it's the Penn State beat number 20 whatever Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
22 Auburn ranked right now. But Arkansas has wins against Texas and A&M, and I don't know. I just don't get it. Yeah. I don't get it.
Well, and I think the Texas win's actually really impressive too, because Texas took the field this week and dominated Iowa State, I believe, right. Who was a ranked team, mm-hmm. When we were going into the season. So Arkansas absolutely has the most impressive resume to this point. That has to be worth more than the spot 8 that they've been given.
There's also no reason Florida should be behind Notre Dame, Iowa, or Penn State.
Agreed.
There just isn't. Florida has pretty much dominated every team they played and lost by 2 against Alabama. And people are going to say, oh, well, Bama kind of quit in the second half. It's like, that's not Florida's fault. Like, that's not Florida's fault. Right. That's on Alabama. And if anything, you should punish Alabama for that. Don't punish Florida for Alabama not giving effort.
Right. Yeah, so that'll round out the top 10 view, obviously. To your point, I think Auburn remaining in the top 25 is kind of criminal. And in fact, I think they moved up a spot in the rankings. It says their previous ranking was 23. That's a little strange to me. Clemson at 25, they shouldn't even be receiving enough votes to even come close to that 25 spot.
No.
But just kind of looking at this, I think we've got an interesting few weeks ahead of us because a lot of non-traditional teams are in the mix right now. Ole Miss right outside the top 10 looking in. They look really impressive. They've got a very dynamic offense. Michigan has looked well. I mean, Ohio State has not looked great. So can Michigan put legitimate pressure on the Buckeyes this year? I don't know. We'll see. But I think it's easy to get it's easy to say not to get worked up because we all recognize that it's Bama, Georgia, and everybody else, I think, at this point. But even still, I think a lot of people are feeling what we feel, that this just doesn't quite feel right. You know what I mean? It doesn't quite seem like it's put together well.
No, and it's just obvious. And like normally I wouldn't have as big of an issue with it. But there's just like these polls create public opinion of like the average fan. Like unless you're watching pretty much every game, you're going to look at the poll and be like, oh, I guess they see something in them or whatever. But if you're watching these games and you see what's happening, it's very clear that these polls are messed up. And it just sucks that it creates such a perception publicly, honestly. That's my problem with it. Not like the college football playoff committee would be any better or has proven that they're better. But it's criminal for Arkansas to not be in the top 5 right now. It's also criminal that Clemson's still ranked.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think
they haven't even looked good. It's not like they look good and just played tough teams. They don't look good.
yeah. No doubt. I mean, they don't. They
That's
can't.
a 500 football team.
They can't score. They can't score. They can't fucking score touchdowns, man. They are in big trouble. Their defense looks great. I mean, they got a top 10 defense, but they can't move the ball. So they're in trouble. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, if the playoffs were to start today, which is always a sentence I hate, it's very stupid. But it would have to be Bama, Georgia, Oregon, and Arkansas, and it's not particularly close, I don't think.
No, I don't think there's anyone. There's no one after that I think it has a legitimate gripe for that last spot. Like there just isn't. And I think honestly, I think Baylor should be higher too. Not that that's like a an issue per se, but Baylor's, after their first game, none of their games have been close, and they just beat Iowa State.
Yeah, Baylor was actually the one I was thinking about. That was over Iowa State. Texas beat Texas Tech. So my mistake. But either way, you're right. I mean, they've handled business. They've got a conference win against a team that going into this season we thought was going to be a conference contender. So
right. Same thing with Wake Forest. I think Wake Forest has a case to be higher instead of some of these other teams. They're 4-0. They've literally, Old Dominion and Norfolk State, they beat by 30 points each. Florida State, they beat by 3 touchdowns. And then they went in at Virginia and won by 20.
Yeah.
That's a team that probably should be higher.
Well, I think all I know is that the ACC and the Big 12 are they're going to get messy.
Yep. They're in big trouble.
I think the Pac-12, it's imperative that Oregon and UCLA continue to win. So that they can kind of stamp out this stigma of beating each other up and not being able to make the playoff. I think football will be in a good place if UCLA can win their division, Oregon can win theirs, and they play for a playoff berth, in a conference championship.
Yeah.
But UCLA has to bring it each week. Losing in the final seconds to Fresno State isn't going to cut it. So
no. Well, and not that Fresno's not a good team, but yeah, I mean, it's crazy, but I think, we look at some of the storylines and like the SEC is the SEC. Like hasn't really changed much. It's Alabama, Georgia, Florida, and pretty much everyone else at that point. But like the ACC, is Clemson even the 4th best team in that conference right now? I don't think so.
I don't think so. I texted you when they were playing this weekend. I was like, I don't even think they're the best team in their division.
No,
it's not. It's
right now. You have to put Wake Forest,
right,
NC State, Louisville. I think has looked really good. They've lost, but they looked good. And I think UNC is still better than Clemson. Even like at least UNC's 2 losses. At least it's Virginia. At least one of them's Virginia Tech.
Well, I mean, look. The bottom line is. It's like I said, if Clemson cannot find a way to find pay dirt consistently, I mean, they're going to lose 3 or 4 more games before the season's up. Because
they're a 500 team if they can't find a way to score, they're a 500 team.
Well, I remember that was one of our comments after they played Georgia was that both of those teams were going to have to find ways to score. Well, I think they both touted elite defenses, top 10 defenses. But Georgia has found their offensive rhythm since. I mean, they beat Vanderbilt 63-0, I believe, this weekend. Yeah. Like they found a way to be a high-powered offense, which, by the way, is the only way that you're going to beat Alabama. You have to score to beat Alabama. So, they kind of addressed that obvious issue, and Clemson is trending in the other direction, and they're in big trouble. And I also can't wait for all the whining bullshit that Dabo's going to be doing in the coming weeks about how disrespected they are and about how we wrote them off and all this.
Yeah, because they are like they're not making the playoff.
No,
the playoff is gone now. They are not making the playoff with 2 losses.
Not when you consider that at this moment there are 4 legitimate playoff contenders in the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
The Big Ten champion, I assume, with 1 loss or no losses, gets in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that is 3 teams right there minimum, maybe 4, depending on how this season shakes out.
Mm-hmm.
There's just no room for error. I mean, that's kind of what I was getting at the Pac-12. Pac-12 has the best chance to stand above the chaos. But by the way, the Big 12 is going to be a mess too. It's pretty evident that you can't just say, "Oh, Oklahoma's the favorite," because West Virginia, I mean, they almost took them down this weekend. So it's Rattler is not what he was sold to be as Heisman favorite. He's not impressive at all. Takes too many risks.
Well, they're not even good risks. It's not like 3rd and long and you take a deep shot and it gets picked off and it's just a punt. Like, those are risks that like you just live with. But yeah, he doesn't look good. He doesn't look comfortable. He looks like a kid with a lot of athletic ability and mentally just can't hang.
Yeah, but I mean, I think at this point, I would be willing to put Baylor as the favorite for that conference.
I still think Texas is the favorite there.
I can see that they looked really impressive this past weekend.
I think Texas. When do they play Red River? Do we know?
It's usually in October.
It's like first weekend of October, I think. Huh? It should be maybe this weekend. No, okay. This weekend's TCU, and then the 9th. So October 9th, they play Red River.
Gotcha.
I mean, whoever wins that game, I think is in the playoff or should be in the playoff. Not the playoff. In the Big 12 championship game.
Mm-hmm.
With, if Baylor can leg it out to the end and just make it with even just 1 loss, they're in. So yeah, it'll be interesting. The SEC is, I mean, I think all of the 4 teams at the top that you mentioned are still, they've all looked beatable in some fashion,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just great. Like, if Anthony Richardson plays in that Florida game, like, I think Florida wins that game. If Anthony Richardson plays, they have that 2-headed monster is unreal. And Emory Jones didn't look bad.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, Alabama is. What I realized in that game is that they are not ready today to play 4 quarters of elite football. They're better than everybody else, so they can play like 2.5, 3, and probably still beat you, which is what happened with Florida. But in that second half, I mean, they basically played 2 dominating quarters and then fell asleep for the second half and allowed Florida to really make it a fight.
Right.
But I got to tell you, man, I got to give some love to what Arkansas is doing. I don't, knowing what we know as closely as we follow this conference, I'm expecting Arkansas to drop a couple of games that they shouldn't. And it may even be against, very decent teams, but like, I know that they've got Georgia this week. That's a game that they should lose, right? So that's a loss. It wouldn't shock me if they lose to a West opponent that they're not supposed to lose to. But one thing I do want to say, and I want to give credit to, is KJ Jefferson he gives me Cam Newton vibes at Auburn like nobody's business. Just watching him play, how dominating he is, how hard he is to bring down. He's a force, man. So hopefully he gets the love that he deserves, because I think when it all shakes out, I mean, you've got what seemed like guaranteed losses to Bama and Georgia. But I hope that the country still keeps him, focused. I hope that they're able to make a New Year's Six bowl, because he's really, really talented.
Yeah, I mean they're playing like just so confident too. Like, they're not lucking into these wins. Like, they're winning these games everywhere.
Oh yeah.
And it is going to be interesting because they are in the West. So, you know, they when you're in the West, you just know that you have the toughest road to the playoff. Like you just do.
Right.
They play
Well,
Georgia this weekend,
yeah,
which will be interesting.
I think.
But it's tough when you play Texas, you play Texas A&M, who Texas at the time was 15, A&M was top 10 at the time, and then Georgia this weekend. Let's say somehow they escape with Georgia. You're like, man, we got through the toughest games on our schedule, and it's like, well, actually, now you have to play at Ole Miss, and then you have Auburn at home, and then you have to play Mississippi State, who's always going to be tricky, whether they're good or not. You have to play at LSU and at Alabama. Like you're right. I think they're going to drop a game somewhere.
So I'll call it. This is what I'm getting at. They will lose to LSU or Ole Miss. One of those games they will drop. Like I just feel it because they're Arkansas. They're trending in the right direction. I think the program is now stable. It's weird because a few years ago we were having the conversation, why would you even take this job? It is the worst job maybe in the nation. You're poised for so much defeat. It's such an uphill climb.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, I mean, I think when you consider that Ole Miss has maybe the best offense in the country, they just seem, they definitely have the best quick strike offense in the country. The pace at which they score is just mind blowing. Mm-hmm. So if they get down early in a game like that, can they claw their way back? Because they've not had to play a game where they're not solidly in front. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
it's a completely different feeling having to fight in a game rather than just put it on cruise.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you're right. I don't know. It's gonna be fun. This is shaping up to be a really fun year. I was listening to Unnecessary Roughness on Barstool, and they're their college football podcast, and they made the joke that said every year, the week where they say this is kind of a shit week, like there aren't really that many good games, becomes like the craziest week.
Oh yeah,
and that's what this week was. A lot of teams got lucky and escaped with a win when they probably shouldn't have. But you got to find good teams. Just find a way sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so I think maybe good pivot point for us to shift our focus to the pro level. Things are getting a little interesting at the NFL level as well. I was thinking maybe we could go over what you thought the biggest winner and the biggest loser for the weekend was. Could be a team, could be a individual. But that way we don't have to keep reviewing our picks, checking in on our picks, because I don't think we've seen enough football to really know if we're going away from those. But who are your big winners and who are your big losers this weekend?
Wait, pro or college?
Pro.
My big winner and big loser is actually from the same game. Winners the Chargers, and losers the Chiefs. I think the Chargers kind of people were saying it this week, and I agree with them. Almost like and it may be dramatic, but like exercising demons almost from the Chargers. Like how many games in the last year and a half have the Chargers lost because of some dumb shit?
Yeah. Like
just some dumb, stupid stuff. Like it just, heartbreaking losses. And they come in and they beat the Chiefs, and the Chiefs, they don't look good.
No.
And it's not, you lose to the Ravens by 1 and the Chargers. And so today Josh Gordon's joining the Chiefs is what came out. I don't know that that's going to help much. I don't want to go as far to say that teams have figured out the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, but something doesn't seem right with them.
Well, I think
they just seem off almost.
Yeah. What I'm seeing from them is teams are literally like double and triple teaming Tyreek Hill. And Kelsey and Krewe are not picking up the slack for what they lose by doing that. So you've seen the last 2 weeks, teams say, like, we're taking away your number one option. You find another way to beat us. And I think there's something interesting too is, and I have to be careful with how I articulate this because I don't think we got to raise alarms or anything. But Mahomes is trying to be a little too much of Mahomes, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like there was like the one like no look interception he threw this weekend that makes no sense to me. Like you gain nothing. You gain nothing by no look passing into coverage. Like it's not going to be enough for that cornerback to stop covering his man. Like I understand what Mahomes is thinking and that like I have this ability, let me try to look a guy off. But they're already fucking 15 yards down the field in coverage. You're not going to look him off by no look passing. So shit like that is, if I'm a Chiefs fan, as much as I love it and as much as he's converted on those things, maybe let's start moving to more traditional football, get a few wins under our belt before you start the hero ball shit.
Right. Well, and to be fair to the Chiefs, the schedule after they play Buffalo on October 10th, after that, the schedule does get significantly easier for the most part. Like they have a Green Bay game, Dallas, and then they play Los Angeles again. But everything else is Denver, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, like teams that they should be beating. But I think you're right. He's trying to play hero ball, and that Chiefs team is too good to put your entire game on one guy. It doesn't matter how good he is.
Right.
Like you have got to let you've got to let your team like carry you. You don't have to be this guy. You know, like the no look pass is fun and people think it's great, and I think that's sort of built into this mystique of Patrick Mahomes, like the legacy of him. But like if you take that away, he's just a good quarterback that maybe does some stupid shit that is lucky most of the time works out for him.
Yeah. I don't remember who said it originally, so it's going to be hard to give credit to this, but somebody was talking about this even before this weekend. It was after the loss to the Ravens, and I think it's a great comparison. But they were like, the problem with the Chiefs is the same problem you have with regular season LeBron James led teams, in that can you trust that they're going to bring 100% effort and 100% attention each week because they know that they're so good. They know that when the time comes, they can turn on the switch, make the playoffs, make their push. It's part of the reason we always see them making these like second half comebacks. They're a second half team. It seems like every team they play gets out in front of them early. But you notice that like it's almost like they're waiting to turn it on. But I will say it's a very bad year to try to participate in that because that division there's no slouches in that division. Both Western divisions are stacked, right? So you have to, you're going to have to, even the Broncos, who I think you said early were going to be a sleeper team. I didn't have a lot of faith in them, but they're looking really good. They're playing efficient football, great defense. They're going to be a tough out.
Yep.
So understanding that you've still got, 6 or 7 division games left, you better turn that switch now. Don't wait, or else you might find yourself on the outside looking in.
Yeah. I mean, it would be very Chiefs-like to get that last wild card slot that they just added, and it's the first year it's there.
Yeah.
And they take that and win the Super Bowl. Like that'd be very Chiefs-like. But you're right. The difference between football and basketball is that you don't have 82 games, right? Like in basketball, if you drop a few games, like 2 or 3, you're kind of like, oh, okay, hold on, let's come on, let's pick it back up, let's reevaluate. You drop 2 or 3 games in the NFL, you look, and now the season's halfway over.
Right.
Like you don't get that luxury. So yeah, I've not been impressed with the Chiefs at all. They're they are the best team in that division, but they're just not playing like it. So
yeah.
But anyways, those are my winners and losers from the same game, because the Chargers finally took a game that looked like was destined. They looked like they were destined to lose again on some stupid shit. and they pulled it out, and they went, going for it on 4th and 9. Sure, it was a incomplete pass and a flag, but like they went for it. It worked out in their favor, and I think they look like they're going to be a really tough out, especially if Herbert gets going.
Yeah. So I think for me, maybe a little cop out, but I think the biggest winner for the weekend has to be Mr. Tucker with that 66-yard bomb that he had. You just knew that the fact that he was kicking against the Detroit Lions, it was going to go through. Like, you just had a feeling. This was so poetic.
Did you see some of the similarities between that and the last record-breaking NFL kick?
No, I saw a little piece on the last time that Detroit lost a game to a NFL record.
Right.
But I didn't see the last one. No.
The last like true record-breaking kick was the New Orleans Saints kicker. I forget his name, Detmer maybe, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
He booted it through to win a game, 19-17 against the Detroit Lions.
That must have been the clip I saw then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unreal.
So I maintain, and I'm going to limit this statement to the big three of football, basketball, and baseball.
Right.
Detroit Lions are the worst franchise in American sports. Like, it's not even particularly close, because not only are they so poorly ran, they force all-time players into early retirement almost consistently. Yeah. Players don't want to stay there. Players get beat up there. And then in addition to that, they have that like Cleveland Browns-esque streak of bad luck where nothing good happens to them ever. Like, God, if you're a Detroit Lions fan, bless you, because you are what sports are about. The fact that you haven't jumped off that wagon or jumped off a bridge and killed yourself, one of the two, is it's very impressive.
They also quite literally almost fully paralyzed one of the best quarterbacks of our time.
Yeah. I mean, the like, imagining what Stafford's career would be literally anywhere else is such a fun game to play, especially now. What he's doing with the Rams is insane. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I feel for the Lions. Tough break. Tucker is, I guess, and then by association, the Ravens are the big winners. Big losers, I could be tempted to just stick there and say the Lions, but you know what I'm going to go instead? I'm going to go in division. The Chicago fucking Bears. The fucking dumpster fire that is that franchise. And look, it's not going to be the first time that this is said. I've heard this all day today. We're recording this on a Monday, by the way. I've heard this all day today about how fucking Nagy put together a game plan to make Justin Fields look like shit so that he could say, yeah, he's not ready. I don't know if that's true. I can't confirm or deny, but he
pass.
No, but here's the thing, man. This is what I'm so curious about with Nagy. I can't tell if he's just a stubborn mule who refuses to listen to any influence or any like public opinion. Right. Or is he a genius that we don't understand? Like, we've got to wait to see his process play out. Now, I'm pretty sure it's the former, not the latter.
Right.
But like, I don't get it, man. Like, I've never seen a coach make so many consecutive wrong calls. Like, pretty much starting with the whole Trubisky nonsense and like continuing to put him out there on the field. I don't know if he's blind or if he just doesn't understand how the position of quarterback is played. Yeah. He just consistently makes mistakes. And like, they are the big losers this week, and I think they'll continue to be the big losers, because that dude needs to go like yesterday.
Yeah, someone who was it? It might have been Good Morning Football. I think it was Kay Adams actually was talking this morning, and she said, what's interesting now is you look at a team like Pittsburgh, right, and like Big Ben just isn't
not good. Yeah,
isn't it? Right. If you're Pittsburgh, do you watch that Bears game and think, you know what? We could probably get Trubisky for a 6th-round pick and see if it really was Trubisky that was bad, or
Hmm.
maybe it was Matt Nagy that was bad. You
Yeah.
know, like how does that affect? That's got to affect Trubisky's stock a little bit, right? Seeing how bad Nagy's been with,
Yeah.
because we know it's not a talent thing with Fields. We know it's not a talent thing, and he doesn't seem to have any sort of work ethic issues. Um, I, yeah, I don't know, man.
I just think it's fucking bullshit that like even before the game started, like it was like the game hadn't even kicked off, and Nagy made a point. Like he made it a point. He wasn't even asked the fucking question, but he made it a point on like Thursday or whatever to make the statement that Andy Dalton was still our starting quarterback. That regardless of outcome, Andy Dalton would be our starting. How fucking stupid do you have to be as a head football coach? Like if Justin Field goes out there and throws for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns, you're going to fucking put Andy Dalton back in there? Like I don't like that. To me is why he is so clearly just too stubborn for his own good. Like when you're
Yeah.
putting that out there to the Chicago media, you're committing to it, and we know he's going to fucking stick to it. As soon as Dalton's healthy and ready to go back in, he'll be rolling out there. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of, and not to just like go totally off the rails here, but this season is weird with like quarterback dynamics because you've basically got in so many cities right now, you've got quarterback controversy, and it seems like every team is handling it different. So in Green Bay, you've got the obvious Rodgers Love dynamic, which we already know how it's going to end, right? Like Rodgers has made it very clear that he's done, right? Like you drafted my replacement, I'm out. Okay, which is fine. It's kind of interesting because if he continues to play the way he played last night, he could have another MVP under his belt. But we'll see how that develops, right? Whatever. Then you go to San Francisco, the team that they were playing last night, and we've mentioned this before, but I've never seen a city with less quarterback drama. Like there's the obvious incumbent in Trey Lance. Jimmy Garoppolo cannot move the ball in the red zone. Poor dude looks lost all the time. And yet nobody is clamoring for Trey Lance to become the starting quarterback like next week. Everybody's kind of like, yeah, it's still Jimmy's job, which is weird because I don't know that Jimmy has played so well that it's out of the question.
Right.
And you've got Pittsburgh, who seems to has, you know, they've got a basically what is a top 15 quarterback all time. Maybe we can pick at those numbers a little bit.
That's fine. That's fine.
Potentially, right? And is he's done. Like he's beyond done. But the city of Pittsburgh doesn't want to let him go. They're like so okay. The sentiment
he can't take 4 steps out of the pocket without tripping over himself.
Yeah, but like the city of Pittsburgh is like, we'll just win in other ways. We'll win with defense in the run game. I'm like, in no other city, like, I don't know. It's just weird to me. It's just interesting, like how many old guy versus new guy controversies there are, and how almost all of them feel like they're being mismanaged at one level or another. But.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, backing up a bit to the, when Nagy was saying about Andy Dalton, I think there's plenty of case study for him to say, you know what, we need Fields to, like, you can make a very valid argument by saying Fields should not be starting.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's going to be better for him in the long run to not play this year and sit behind Dalton, learn whatever. There's plenty of cases in the NFL that you can point to that say, hey, that quarterback was not ready and it really fucked up their development. But to be that blunt about it, because you're right, if Fields goes out and kills it, you can't.
Yeah.
You can't put him back, right? Now, Nagy's lucky that he didn't. I think they had, one net pass yard? That game, like 1 yard. So, I think you're right. It's just, I don't know, man. The Bears are really bad.
That's the point, right? Is like putting your first round draft pick quarterback behind a veteran so that he can learn. That only works if your franchise is intentional on developing a quarterback. if they have shown a track record of taking care of their players and getting them ready to play and teaching them how to be professionals and teaching them how to prepare. But the fucking Bears are a dumpster fire. So I can't shake the feeling like you're not actually developing him. You're just benching him. He's not actually taking anything from Andy Dalton, which he seems to be mature enough that I think he's going to take his career into his own hands. But at the same time, it's like, that's a myth that we buy into a lot, is that like just by literally being on the bench and watching pros be pros, that's enough. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think some franchises just aren't able to develop players. The Jets come to mind almost immediately. Like, you can't just say, I'm going to have this young guy watch, and that's going to be good for his career. I don't think that's necessarily true 100% of the time.
Right. No, I mean, it's not. But what I'm saying is there's plenty of cases where that is the case. But to your point, there's also plenty of cases where it's not. Right.
Yeah.
So, but that's what I'm saying is like, he's not particularly wrong and thinking that that's the best way about it, but it's not. But I guess if I could add on to what I said earlier, it's not going to happen in Chicago.
Yeah.
Like, but the idea of getting Fields a little more comfortable with the speed of the game in practice and in scrimmages and letting him run scout team against a number one defense, because their defense is still good. Like that, the idea of that, I get that idea. That's an idea that makes sense to me, and I don't fault that. But you're right, where sometimes teams and franchises are just not equipped to develop talent, and so they're not. But so I get why you would want to do that, but like in their situation, you're right, they can't.
Yeah.
Like they just aren't gonna unless they fire Nagy and hire someone else who can do it, which I don't really know who else they would get. Like the best coaches aren't leaving where they at. Like Sean Payton's not leaving New Orleans. Belichick's not leaving New England. Harbaugh's not leaving Baltimore. Like the best coaches aren't leaving.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, you'd have to dip into assistant coaches, right? Like you,
right.
Like I gotta imagine that a lot of the offensive staff for the Rams are going to get looks this year at both the collegiate and pro level, right? Just by virtue of timing. Like, but you're right. You're gonna have to take a risk on an assistant coach because there's not really an established guy just waiting in the wings.
No. So it's it is unfortunate, and I feel for Justin Fields because I think he got screwed over in the draft in a way. Like all of the rookie quarterbacks have at least shown flashes. Like Zach Wilson looks like the worst at this point, but even he's shown a couple of moments where you're like, okay, he can, like, even Zach Wilson could probably find some success, at some point.
Right.
So, I don't know. I think he's just in a bad, it's like sometimes you're just in a bad spot, and it doesn't matter how good you are. So I also, if the Bears go 500, I don't know that Nagy stays. I don't know much about the Bears front office or their GM or their owner or anything like that, but I have to imagine that Nagy's gone after that. Also, what is it with these offensive gurus? Like, someone tweeted, some Saints beat writer today tweeted, looking at all of these, so-called offensive gurus and these offensive masterminds, like, really struggle. Like Matt Nagy, Adam Gase. Before this year, McVay was kind of struggling a little bit for a couple seasons. Like it makes you really appreciate people like Sean Payton, who just, he had Drew Brees, but even when Drew was out, they played well because he just adapts to whatever he's got. So it, it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have to be, that's an overused word, I think, in football, the guru, the mastermind. And sometimes it works, like for in our immediate world, right? Like, I think it's only a matter of a couple of years before Joe Brady has a legitimate shot at a head coaching job at the NFL. Is that
He's
offense
probably
that,
close now, I'd imagine.
I mean, that offense that they're running, Sam Darnold is playing out of his mind. That whole offense is humming. Christian McCaffrey goes down. They almost don't even miss a beat. Like they plug Hubbard in there, and it's just they just continue to dominate. So like it's but I say that because that's something we experienced, right? I mean, we know him well. He truly is, I think, a guru. I think his scheme is tough to figure out for NFL defenses right now, and but you can't just place that on everybody, right? Like, Andy Reid is another one, right? Everybody, at least in our lifetime, he was kind of that first one where it was like, he's got that like niche offense, right? Like we've said, you and I have had conversations before, like, is Pat Mahomes anywhere else? He would be now. He can go anywhere now and be successful, but to start his career, would he be Mahomes anywhere else? I don't think so. Andy Reid allowed him to do that. So there's very few times where like guys pan out.
He took the chance to start him.
Right.
Like you get rid of a guy like Alex Smith, who before that injury, Alex Smith could win you game. Alex Smith could get you to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like Alex Smith was a top 10 quarterback in his prime. And that takes some fucking cojones to say, you know what, we're going with this kid from Texas Tech who never did better than the fucking Cotton Bowl in college. Like that takes some balls.
Alex Smith, poor bastard. That dude is like, he is the poster child for ushering in, successful or not, the poster child for getting hurt and then allowing a much more athletic and young quarterback to come in and light the league on fire. Like Kaepernick did it behind him in San Francisco, and then he goes to Kansas City and Mahomes is behind him. He then goes to Washington and Well, I was thinking maybe. That's why I said successful or not. I'm forgetting his name. Dude from Ohio State. He's with Pittsburgh
Haskins.
now. Yeah, Haskins. Like there was a lot of hype around Haskins, even though it didn't pan out. Like all of those things, like he's the poster child for that, for getting banged up, and then here comes the young guy. Yeah, unfortunately.
And it's it kind of sucks, but at the same time, like that's a decision that now with hindsight was very obviously the right call.
In every single one of those cases,
right, exactly. Like it ended up being the right call because, like, even Kaepernick's last year, he wasn't very good, but even Kaepernick found some success in the league and was a guy that people had trouble game planning against. So,
well, those two seasons, the season that he took over, and then the next season where he was starting, I mean, the league had no answer for him whatsoever.
No,
but then they figured him out, which is it is what it is. But
so but it's I don't know. It's just one of those things where I think teams are sort of that there was like an old school way of running your offense with professional football, and it was like, this is my offense and you need to learn how to run my offense. But we see time and time again that the best coordinators change their offense to their players. So why some people still haven't figured that part out, I have no clue. There are still coordinators in the league who say, nope, this is my offense, you're going to run my offense. And they don't change a damn thing.
Like, that's
it's just lazy at its core.
That's the perfect example of what happened to Kaepernick. That's why he never developed further after those first 2 years, because Harbaugh told him, every year you need to develop more and more into a pro-style quarterback. Because when he first took over, they implemented some of those pistol elements that he ran at Nevada, so he was comfortable. And then they tried to force him into a pro-style quarterback play, and he just never developed after that. Like, there's so many case studies on that failing. And, like, you're right. You have to, like, what his brother is doing in Baltimore, how he's completely revamped that entire offense to fit what Lamar does. Like, the fact that they can rush for, like, whatever it ends up being, 150, 200 yards a game, every game, like, we see passing offenses all the time that you just can't figure out. It's very rare for a team to take the field and say, I'm going to rush on you. The team knows that you're going to rush and you still get your yards. It's crazy. But
Yeah.
that's what they've done. They know that Lamar can pull it off, and they've developed that to him.
Well, and it helps that Lamar's one of the best play action quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Not even that his fakes are so good, but the threat of him
Yeah.
running the ball is just always there. So you have to respect everything when the
Right.
Ravens step to the field, and that helps. Like you're right. Like Harbaugh has helped that. Like he's gotten the Ravens team to a point where every week they could do something different. Lamar can pass for 400, or Lamar can rush for 150, or any fucking running back they put back there has a chance to rush for 100 yards any game.
Yep.
But they've done that because they've just been really efficient with everything. So it's just crazy that like Matt Nagy can't fucking figure it out.
Yeah. Just fuck.
Like that's like the opposite of an offensive guru. Like an offensive guru isn't your system is so good that anyone can run it, or your system's so good they can't figure it out. Teams can figure stuff out, but if you're good at a lot of things, you just never have to worry.
Yeah. Yeah. Nagy's in trouble. Mr. Nagy. He's in trouble.
He was in trouble last year. Like
Well,
he's past trouble. If he does, I'm pretty like if he loses the next 2 games, I think he's gone midseason.
Well, I don't know what those 2 games are, but if one of them's against Minnesota, yikes! Because Minnesota, by the way, is a 1-2 football team that should be 3-0. They look really, really talented. So I don't know.
It's so. I am right, by the way. If they lose the next 2, he's gone. Actually, if they lose the next game, he might be gone. It's against the Lions.
Bro,
if they lose next week against the Lions, he's gone.
Dude, I think the Lions are a good football team. I
agree.
I think that they're probably going to win that matchup. I think the Bears are by far the worst team in that division.
I'm not sure the Lions are a good football team, but they seem to be well coached and they seem to be confident.
Well, I think
playing regardless of the losses.
I think the Swift Williams dynamic is pretty good. I think it's enough to give that offense some legs. I think Jared Goff is trash, but it is what it is.
It's funny that you say that. I'm saying let's not pretend that Jared Goff is the worst quarterback in the league. Is what I was going to say. Is like Jared Goff is fine.
Right.
Like he's one of the best 32 quarterbacks in the NFL. That's like an argument I always go to when we talk about quarterbacks and if they're bad or good. I always go back to that. Are they one of the best 32 quarterbacks in the league? And if they are, they may not be great, but
I mean there are some people who thought that the Stafford for Goff swap, I know that there was other pieces involved, but that swap was a 1-to-1, which we know is horseshit, but there are people who thought that. There's some Lion fans out there who thought that they actually improved because Goff had more years on his docket. But it's the Bears and their issues. I mean, it's the Lions, excuse me, and their issues persist, but
and they are. If you believe that Matt Stafford is just completely injury prone and he didn't just have terrible offensive lines, like then you have a case. Like if Stafford gets hurt this year, right? Like if he tweaks his back or something like that, like then you might have a case and say, oh, well, actually, yeah, he has been hurt a lot, but he's very well protected in LA, and so he's not going to get hit all that much.
I mean, let's not mince words here. The Rams are the best team in football right now, and it's not particularly close. I think this weekend was a perfect litmus. Like, if they continue to play this, because to be honest with you, they didn't even rush the ball well. Like it was all pass the whole freaking game, and they still found a way to win pretty comfortably. But
I think the Rams look like the best team of football right now. On the complete flip side of that, I think the Raiders are the worst 3-0 NFL team ever.
Yeah, they do seem to keep finding ways to
Just kind of find a way.
squeak them out.
There's no way Derek Carr improved like to where now he's just fucking
I think
slinging it without turning the ball over. Like that just
well,
I just don't think that he's gotten that much better. You know?
I did have a sense going into the season that was one of my sleepers that the Raiders would improve. I didn't think that they were going to make a legitimate run on the division or anything.
Yeah.
But knowing what I know now and seeing that the Broncos are pretty efficient, like they're not high powered, but they're efficient, I think division play will probably take care of the Raiders.
Yeah.
I think you're gonna get a couple of matchups with a pissed off Kansas City team, which is no bueno, and then yeah. So I think division play will clean that out. But all I know is Gruden is a fucking maniac. I was watching some of the faces that dude makes, like when the game is close in the fourth quarter and he's like pissed off at a call or something. That dude's insane. Like he's manic. It's almost like some shit you'd see in a horror movie. It's frightening.
Yeah, I just you're right. I think the Broncos look like probably the best team in that division, I'd say. Only because like Teddy's just one of those guys. He's just not going to lose you a game. Like you're not going to lose because of Teddy, you know, and sure he's not going to show up on the stat sheet as like completely crushing it, but he's going to do what he needs to do to win that game. So yeah, and they have, and all the weapons they have on the outside is interesting, you know, like Teddy's not the kind of guy that's going to use all those weapons, but you know, they look good. You know, they're going to be a tough out in the playoffs if they play like this.
Yeah.
Just control the game.
Yeah.
And then anyway, Saints are winning the Super Bowl this year, so I don't know if you want to go that far or anything.
I'm ready to see them play the Bucks. I want to see what that looks like.
When is their first Bucks game? Let's see.
Because I mean, I think we're both in agreement that we're attributing what the loss ended up being to the Panthers to the players that were out, right? I mean, I don't think that game is a blowout. It wasn't really a true blowout,
but it really wasn't. No,
but I don't think it would have been that wide of a margin. Let's say at full strength.
True. The Saints have the Giants, then Washington,
Dubs.
then the Seahawks, then Bucks. Seahawks defense is not good. I would give the Saints a win in that as well. Not as confidently as, you know, New York or Washington, obviously, but I think Lattimore is having a hell of a season so far. So
I think the Seahawks are trending in the wrong direction too. So
yeah, but we kind of knew that was going to happen.
There's just no space for them in that division to be greatly successful.
No, and you know, Russ is going to keep them in pretty much any game that they play. But yeah, I mean, it's going to just be a log jam, and it's probably going to come down to a game or two between winning the division and not even making the playoffs. So,
yeah. Well, we're just reaching the hour mark, so I think we may pivot here a little bit. Speaking of log jams, let's talk a little bit about our favorite wide-bodied streamer and Mr. Tatman, Timothy
Tenders,
Timothy the Tatman.
Timothy Tenders, yeah. So Tim, I think we could I mean, you may not, but I would go out on a limb and say I think Tim is the hottest streamer right now. As far as success and you know, growth, changes, money, getting the bag, like he's killing it, right? So to recap, switches to YouTube, okay, and then right around the time that he swapped to YouTube, he announced a deal that he had with FanDuel. So he switches to YouTube. then goes to FanDuel. FanDuel signs him on
Mhm.
September 10th, right? And then we go up to September 20th. And actually, before that, he goes to the M-Fan barbecue,
Right.
gets hammered, smokes cigars.
Yeah.
September 20th, he joins Complexity, which we can talk about in a second. I'm sure you have some thoughts on that. September 22nd, actually September 21st, announces he's got a pop-up, a meetup event at the Star in Frisco, the Cowboys facility.
Yeah.
22nd announces that he's partnered with AT&T, and they're doing a road show where he's going to just be traveling to these sick locations and streaming from there. And then 24th, which was a few days ago from when we're doing this, gets his own burrito on the app, which is like the least cool of all of them. But like, it's still like, it's something that Valkyrie had, Courage had, like, you know.
I mean, it's the
Myth
true indicator
had.
of success when you're like, your name is on fast food.
Right.
Which
and
is
people
like,
are buying it because your name's on it.
Yeah.
Not to mention, I'm sure Doc is boosting his numbers, right? I think Tim's numbers are probably better than Doc.
But well,
Maybe,
so here's the thing.
but-
Here's what's interesting. And I was noticing this a couple of days ago. They have reclaimed the dynamic that they used to have on Twitch, where Tim starts much earlier than Doc starts. You know, Tim does his usual, we'll call it just chat. I don't know what you call it on YouTube now, but the just chatting portion of his stream where he's going through Instagram or he's watching TikToks or he's watching food, like whatever he's doing, right? He does that for a couple hours, whatever, and then he gets into games.
Farms money.
Yeah. So during that time, he's like dominating the YouTube space, but then Doc goes live. And while they're playing together, they share the same numbers. And then when Tim goes offline, they all migrate over to Doc for like the last hour or whatever of his stream, which is the way it used to operate on Twitch. There was like a solid rhythm. And then you had like Nick Merckx on the outside looking in where he kind of like maintained their numbers throughout. I want to come back to Tim, but the very first thing you said was like, I think that Tim is like the biggest success story in streaming right now. Absolutely agree. But I wonder how much of that is like timing, because, and this may sound like a stretch, but like, I kind of feel like Nick has, in a weird way, like taken a back seat to a lot of what's been happening in the streaming community. Like he kind of went offline for the barbecue, and that's something he was doing it for his community, and that's fine. I can't fault him for that. But also, like, I think his decision to kind of like stay far away from Call of Duty and be like an Apex guy for a short period of time, I think probably cost him some money and some attention, because like it seems like in the time that he got into like really niche gameplay, Tim signed all of these things. And I almost feel like we're not even talking about Nick in the great landscape, but I just wanted to throw that out there. As far as Tim goes, dude is crushing it. I think like the fact some of these partners that he's getting, like we talked about the Chipotle thing, I think that's great. We'll talk about Complexity in a second. The AT&T thing is actually fascinating to me, because I think it's yet another indicator. I feel like we talk about this every single time we record, but another indicator that gaming is creeping into like other spaces, and just like something that if you would have told me like 10 years ago that this would be happening, I would have told you to shut the fuck up, because there's just no way that like the world's largest communications company is partnering with a streamer, and that they think it's financially viable to do that, and that it can benefit both parties, is mind-blowing to me. Like, think about that. Like what does it in 10 years ago, what does AT&T stand to gain by even considering something like this? Nothing. But now it's a financially viable partnership, which is crazy. And then the Complexity piece of it, which I think is, I mean, it makes sense now that we've had like a few days to like digest it. I mean, with him being such a big Cowboys fan, Complexity was not on my radar I mean, I didn't really even know that they existed. But it seems like him, whatever percentage of ownership he's gotten out of this thing, because we talked, it didn't really seem like Tim had anything to gain from joining. Like, if he had joined FaZe or 100 Thieves, like, it would have been, the org would have benefited 100%, and Tim would not have benefited at all. Like, it would have just been like a playful PR move, right?
Right.
But I think this kind of where it's off the radar and it's very niche to him and it's associated with the Cowboys, which he loves. I think he can actually turn it into something. Like, he can be part of a movement to lift up complexity into that upper tier of, if nothing else, social awareness of these gaming orgs, right? So the complexity move surprised me, but I think it's a smart business play. Because anywhere else I don't really think works, you know?
I think two very interesting things about complexity that I kind of noticed, like I picked up on a little bit. The first one is that obviously the Cowboys thing is cool, whatever. But Tim mentioned when he was talking about joining orgs, he said he met with a bunch of different ones. We mentioned it maybe last episode or the episode before, where we were talking about what he would stand to gain from that, and like we were talking about why would Tim join an org to begin with, and one of the things he said, which was interesting, is he's going to be able to do stuff for his community. And like they're going to be able to put on events. And a perfect example of that is literally he announced the org, and then that Sunday he was doing a meetup in Dallas, Dallas.
Yeah.
For anyone it was free. Anyone who wanted to go would show up. They had literally exclusive shirts made. They used the star at Frisco for all of this. Like, that is crazy that you can just literally be like, hey, by the way, I joined an org. And also, by the way, like, we're meeting up at the Star in Frisco to hang out. Y'all can meet me and get some limited time merch. Like, that's the stuff that I imagine these big streamers, your world and your community probably feels a whole lot. Your community probably feels not as tight knit when you get bigger. You get bigger and bigger and bigger in your community. You feel less of this community thing. But going out and like meeting the people who watch you probably makes it feel a whole lot smaller. So that's the first thing. It's so cool, the like event, right, that they had and that he could go to. That's the first thing that I found interesting. The second thing that I found interesting is, again, something we were talking about previously with like FaZe, right? We were talking about the difference between FaZe and 100 Thieves and their sort of strategies of branching off. 100 Thieves going after pure just content creators, and FaZe kind of doing God knows what, right?
Yeah.
But like signing Kyler Murray and stuff like that. Well, Tim joining Complexity, which is so closely linked to the biggest sports franchise in this country, is super interesting in that sense, right? Where Tim is probably going to have the opportunity, whether or not it will happen, we'll see how closely they all work together. But
yeah,
Tim is in a very unique position. Like Ezekiel Elliott was at his meetup.
Yeah.
Like just showed up. Like the guy was literally wearing a t-shirt and shorts. It looked like he just decided on a whim. He was like, Tim's going to be there. Let me just go,
Right.
So Tim's in a super interesting position now to sort of, I don't want to say merge the two worlds, but like you're telling me that like in the off season, Dak and Zeke aren't going to want to fucking squad up in Battlefield or in Vanguard and like fuck around with Tim the Tap Man, like
For sure.
Like this is such a better strategy of integrating traditional sports than what FaZe was trying to do. That I found that super interesting as well. And Complexity seems to have a plan to do some of that stuff. Like they had a welcome video for Tim, and Dak and Mike McCarthy and Jerry Jones, they made videos for him welcoming him to Complexity. Like, it just feels like this is a lot more of a partnership than, say, a Nick Merckx and FaZe. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
this feels like, okay, Tim is in it to not even change the game, but just like Tim's gonna make his own fucking lane in
Exactly.
streaming because he's 31. It's also interesting too because we're gonna see how long are these guys gonna stream for. Like, these guys could probably retire now if they wanted to, but you know they're playing video games for a living, so they won't. And it's going to be interesting how Tim kind of starts to transition to using Complexity to sort of do a bunch of different shit other than playing video games.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that was very long winded, but like those are the two really interesting things I saw.
Yeah, I think it's very true. I mean, it's a move that allows him to like almost exist in his own little market share, you know. And it wouldn't shock me if, you know, although there's really no way to recreate that kind of ripple effect that Tim does joining an org like this. But it could be a trendsetter thing. I mean, you're right in that his proximity to professional players, it's just a whole nother avenue for growth. And like, again, talking about how gaming is spilling over, like it's only a matter of time before like established social individuals, be they athletes, be they celebrities, whatever, before they recognize that like the avenue of traditional social media is expanding to streaming, is expanding to gaming. And you know, it's only a matter of time before these athletes managers are like, hey, we got to get in on this. And there's going to be Tim just waiting for that, because he'll be the first one in line for he'll have the closest proximity to execute on that immediately. You know, so
or even help, like, say something happens to Zeke and he has this injury and he's just not the same, right?
right.
Like, you're telling me that like Zeke wouldn't be like, hey Tim, listen man, like I'm not going to be able to play football for that long. Like, if these guys don't want to get into coaching and they definitely don't want to go back to school and fucking start over
And come to play school.
Right. Like, in swoops Tim to say, hey, let me show you how to do this. Like, let's talk about streaming and talk about this. And like Tim almost being a mentor to these fucking athletes who transition now. Because that's going to be the transition for a lot of these guys, man, is content creation. And not even streaming per se. Like, there's still money in streaming for sure. But like, we've talked about it already, so we don't have to delve too far, but like streaming has become sort of the secondary piece. Like the primary piece is making content for TikTok and YouTube videos and things that people want to share and show their friends. Like, people don't tune in to to streams because like it's a super entertaining show. Like, I watch streams because I want background noise or whatever. So I don't know. Tim is kind of. I love that Tim's making his own lane. He could have just as easily joined 100 Thieves, called it, and been done. You know, that's because that's where his friends are. But he saw Complexity. He talked to them. They said, "Hey, we can partner with you. We can do this, that, and the other."
Right.
He's going to be a part owner of Complexity, so they're going to be able to bend his ear. And he's been, outside of Ray, he's probably been one of the fastest growing streamers at this point. And now he's at this team, Complexity, that is so interestingly positioned where other orgs aren't, that maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm expecting very big things from Complexity and from Tim. Like, Cloaksy has been wearing a Complexity hoodie for the last 4 days in Dallas. Like, what happens if Tim's like, hey, look, you guys let's get a few of these streamers to come and let's build this shit up. I don't know. I like that he's building his own lane. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's a solid move. I also had this like comical image pop in when you were like setting up the hypothetical with Zeke of like Disney princess of Tim meeting him with his magic carpet, singing a whole new world to Zeke.
Right.
But yeah, no, man, it's I'm happy for him. I think it's I think a lot of his success is directly tied to the fact that he's just, he's a good dude. He seems to be doing it the right way as far as we know, right? And he's expanding into new territory. It seems like every day there's some new Tim the Tatman news. I do have a general question. Does this man own a regular pair of shoes? And the reason I ask is because every single time I fucking see this guy, he's wearing slides every single time. And it doesn't matter.
Streamers don't dress.
Well, true. I get that. But most of them wear shoes. Like, he showed up to the barbecue in slides.
Right.
He showed up to all of these meetings in slides.
Of course.
Like, I mean, I'm like, I get it, man. Comfort over everything. But I just get this man some tennis shoes. Like, some Fly Nikes or something. Shit.
Yeah, he's just such an interesting human being. Like Tim, I love Tim. I loved him. I do. He should not be this successful.
No.
He just shouldn't be. And he is, and he's just such a good person that I'm glad it's him that all of this is happening to. But he's also he's making the right moves. He's not being an idiot about it and just, taking the bag. Like, joining Complexity and being a part owner doesn't come with a bag right away, No. It's something that he is very clearly bought into and is buying, and he's going to try and, build something, for himself. And Complexity needed him, right? It's not like we're not talking about an org that was on the rise,
Right.
Like, this is like Complexity needed him just as much as he wanted to kind of do something different.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think if nothing else, it's a new challenge for him, right? I mean, it's gonna require some time investment for him, like these pop-ups and things, and promoting the brand. Maybe a little more on his plate than he already had, but a new challenge for him. And who knows if he continues to push the boundaries. You talked about retirement. I think in his case, maybe this is his off ramp to ownership into the gaming space, and not participating as a face, that we interact with, but is kind of pulling the strings. I think Summit and Doc have both implied that they're going to try to do the same with game development. So maybe that's the next wave, right? That's what we end up seeing is these guys pursuing, still in the same space, but they use their platform to parlay directly into
something else.
A new challenge.
Yeah, well, and I mean, to be fair, I think Nadeshot was kind of one of the first, maybe not the first, but he's one of the more prominent ones to actually do that already.
Yeah.
He was a COD guy, and then he kind of wasn't streaming that much while he was building 100 Thieves, and he still doesn't really stream all that much, but he was a big streamer, streamed all the time, played pro Call of Duty, and now is the owner of an org, right? So we've seen it before, but maybe not at this scale. Like, this scale, it seems like there is no limit to how high someone like Tim can go.
Agreed. Because I mean, we've already touched on it, but they have access to things that 100 Thieves does not, that FaZe does not. Like, they can go out there and sign athletes, but do they have access to the building and the ownership that pay the athletes' salaries? I don't think so. So I think he's got a little bit more tools at his disposal than other folks who are pushing this org envelope.
Right. And people are, like, Tim is like one of the least problematic people as well in the space. So, like, people are going to work with him regardless, you know? Like, how many orgs do you think we're finding for fucking Tim the Tatman?
Well, I think probably, he said that he went through a lot of meetings, but I imagine whenever he had that conversation with his, like, managers and things, probably everyone in existence probably reached out and said, hey, get a piece of that pie. No pun intended for Timmy Tenders, but
well, he said that he hadn't made up his mind until he talked to Jerry Jones, I don't know if you remember. I think it was the first Cowboys game, or maybe it was a preseason game that he was at the game, and he was in Jerry's suite, and he was like, "Oh, I met the man" or whatever. That's
Yeah.
why he was in the suite. They were talking about complexity.
But isn't that also so crazy to like?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that he has people that take care of complexity on his behalf. I mean, I have no doubt. I know that he doesn't know anything about the space, but isn't it also weird that like this entire time, like Jerry Jones had his fucking wrinkly, creepy old fingers in the gaming space, and none of us were really, if we were aware of it, we weren't really like talking about it. It's so mind-boggling to me that they were even in this position. Like I had to process it when Tim joins and I find out what complexity is and who they're tied to. I had to do some homework. It's like it's just a weird clashing of things that seems like they should be separate, but here we are.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it seems like a good idea, but obviously they're gonna have to figure it out.
Yeah, no doubt.
So,
well, we've managed to talk once again about football for about an hour, and then sprinkle on a few minutes of other junk.
Of course.
Yeah, we do get a little long winded. So,
a little bit.
How about we pivot to what we've been watching? And I'm just gonna say this up front. I don't really have anything good this week because I'm still in my TikTok pit of despair. Right. We'll do better for next week, but I think you have something that's really cracked you up.
Oh man.
So we'll allow it to take the stage.
Oh. So I've been watching this video. I've watched this video 7 times today. And I just want to say, I'm not doing this because I'm a Saints homer. Okay? But there's a 40-second video of the Saints pregame huddle from the Patriots game. And it's Jameis Winston watching Demario Davis give this speech. I don't know that I've laughed harder at something recently. It is like if I was giving a speech, I would want someone like Jameis, but Jameis is so unintentionally funny.
Yeah.
That it's so crazy to me. Demario's given this really heartfelt speech, and James is like, "Yes, sir. Yes, sir." And he goes, "You got to support the person on the side of you." And James goes, "I got his back," and puts his arm around him. He goes, "Look him in the eyes," and he fucking gets down to Deontay Harris's 5'6" butt and like looks him, like literally turns his head and looks him in the eyes. It's just I've been cracking up at this, and I'll probably watch it about 3 more times before I go to bed tonight. But it's so good. I put it in the Discord if you want to pull it. But
I think I'll have to knock away your screen if I do that.
Can, that's fine.
But is this the one?
Could be. I found it on YouTube. But that's probably it.
Let's give it a go.
For yourself. Man, think about it, man. You waited your whole life for this. You was built for this. You've been working for this moment. Play for yourself. Play for the man beside you. I got his back. Man, look at the man beside you. Look at him. Look at it. He counting on you. And the eyes is looking at you. You counting on them. Yes, sir. Play for the man beside you. Man, the most important, man, we playing for our city, dog. Our whole city watching us right now. Our whole city hope on us right now. Man, own that. You know what that means? The city
yes, sir.
on our
Yes, sir.
Let's go, man. Say 3. 1, 2, 3.
I wonder if, like, is he aware of what a living meme he is? It's almost like he can't help himself. Like, everything he says and does is just so easy. Oh, man. One of a kind. Don't ever change. Don't ever change, Winston.
He is so funny. He really is. And honestly, like, he's had some shit thrown at him. I think he's a good person. Yeah. I do. And, like, he's just so funny, dude.
What's so funny about that clip right there is, like, in his mind, he's like, yeah, that's what this is what this moment needs. This moment needs me to jump in here and get the additional hype. Like, I'm the accessory to our hype man here. Crazy. Wild.
I was sitting in my office, and I'm sure the person, like the people who work in that office too, were hearing me, but I was cackling this morning. The funniest part of that is he just doesn't know he's being funny.
Exactly.
Like he doesn't. He has no idea that he is the best part of this.
Right.
But anyways, this is what I've been watching. I'm gonna watch it a few more times today. I'll watch it a bunch this week. I'm gonna play it at the tailgate this Saturday.
Oh yeah.
And it's, oh my god.
We should just recreate it at the tailgate. Like, just get.
I don't know. I mean, who's Jameis? Who's gonna be Jameis?
Well, you've watched it so many times. You're the expert.
Oh, I don't know that I could do that.
I'll be DeMario. I could do that. I can get us fired up.
Of course, you take Mario.
It's a lot of pressure, but I think you can pull it off, man.
We'll make Evan Deontay.
Yeah. We'll get a huddle, man. I'll start grabbing strangers.
Wes could be the camera guy.
True. Just hold it still.
That's up. But yeah, so that's what I've been watching. So do you not have you don't have a video for us? That's pretty disappointing.
I know.
Well, talk about what you're going to be doing this week instead.
The hell am I going to be doing this week?
New World.
Oh, true. I was actually going to close with that, but we can parlay it into closing. Yeah, so New World drops tomorrow. We're recording this on Monday again, so tomorrow's Tuesday the 28th. We'll be playing that this week, and I expect Beyond. So by the time that this video drops, we'll have already streamed this a couple of times, I believe, on our individual channels. Be sure to link those down in the description for you. But it's actually going to be my first MMO, like my true first MMO experience. Like the only, and I'm going to even struggle to remember the name of the one that I played. I played one briefly for like one afternoon, and just didn't hook me. But I'm actually really looking forward to New World. I watched some of the beta, and looks really fun. I like that there's like kind of a mix of traditional movement and combat, like third person combat, on top of like MMO mechanics. So yeah, hopefully we can sink our teeth in and stay committed to it for a little while until some of these other titles we're hoping for are drop. Be on the lookout for those items.
Yeah,
we will both be there grinding.
For sure. Yeah, I'm excited about New World. I think it'll be fun. The beta and everything was really fun. So I'm excited. I think it's gonna be fun, and seems like it can provide a lot of content for a while too, especially if Endgame is as fun as they say it'll be.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with that, I think we'll wrap her up. Remember, Ben, that our whole city's watching us. Right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. All right.
Represent.
Well, until next time, peace out. Later, Gators.